Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I am Franco Panizo, your usual co-host, and joining me is the man who makes a few occasional appearances throughout the course of the year, but they're always to talk bigger picture items, bigger ticket items. He's probably the most expensive of the bunch, although, I don't actually pay him anything. Simon Evans, my good friend. Simon, different outlook here today, different setup. We got some glasses, we got the hat, okay?
Yeah.
You're wearing a jersey?
We are wearing a jersey. Can you guess what it is from there?
Black and white, I'd say Fulham. That's my best guess. Oh, is it Germany?
It's the anniversary kit, the retro one with Adidas. Some of these retro Adidas kits are really cool. These new ones these classic series that they brought out, I really like them. But
ich spreche kein Deutsch, Simon. Ich spreche kein Deutsch. I don't speak German.
Me neither. Not really.
Yeah. Simon Evans is English, but do you have German in the pipeline, or you just have the Germany jersey on?
No, I just like the jersey. I love these retro jerseys. I like a lot of the Adidas anniversary kits that they do, like the Columbia one. You've seen like the one with the three. Yeah. I've been trying to get hold of that, and the only time I saw it was like $175, and I thought, I know Franco spends money like that on Messi jerseys, but I can't run to that for a Columbia one. But
brother.
The other one I've got my eye on, and I'm just waiting for the right size to drop it. It's actually on a discount because it's been overtaken for some reason. Umbro's Guatemala kits. Have you seen those?
Nice. Yeah, those are nice.
With the dark blue one, I think is a second kit. I think the away kit. I think.
Yeah.
I just love it. It's just beautiful, that one. A little bit of light blue on it as well. Oh, so those are floating around, but they don't have them in my size, and that matters.
I appreciate that you nerd out on jerseys because I'm like a big jersey person in general, and no, I did not pay for these. I think they were.
You bought one. I'm sure you bought one.
No, I definitely bought I bought this one, the very first one, because I wanted to do a review on it when it first came out.
Right.
I might have bought this one too. Actually, you might.
No, you did. I remember you
yes.
I remember you saying you paid some extortionate price for it.
I had to do the review right then and there, and unfortunately, Inter Miami wasn't sending me any Messi jerseys for reviewing purposes. So, all the same, Simon Evans joins me here. Welcome back, Simon, to Casa, your house, Miami Total Football Radio, the show. We've got, I won't say a lot to talk about. Normally we have a lot. I think
big things,
bigger ticket items to talk about on this one. And by the way, there's this new feature now here on StreamYard, which is what I use to run our live streams, which includes being able to show the comments as they come in, because some people have complained to Jose and Andrea apparently that I don't click every comment, that I intentionally avoid some, which is not
censorship.
True. It's just
censorship scandal at Miami Total Football Radio.
Yeah. If there's one thing that we don't do here, it's censor people, even if they have the most ridiculous things to say, curse words. It doesn't matter. We're very South Park in that way.
No cursing tonight. No cursing.
It's hard to look at you, listen to you, get everything set up, talk, get my thoughts together coherently, and also look at the comments. So I do miss some from time to time.
Yeah, well, the big pods have a producer for a reason, don't they? The ones that've got the big budgets, but
not this one though.
Bootstrappers, we don't get producers.
Yeah, I spent all that money goes to jerseys apparently. But we will start, Simon, with kind of just touching base on where the state of the team is. Later, we will get into Lionel Messi's reported new deal that he is, well, according to the reports, he has signed. It's just not been made official yet, but we'll get to that a little bit later, as well as the reports saying that Sergio Busquets, his time as a professional player is coming to a close. But again, we'll save that for a little bit later. Simon, just want to touch base on Inter Miami's most recent 2 games. They beat the Seattle Sounders since we last did a pod, 3-1 at home at Chase Stadium. And then that was followed a few days later for this past Saturday with a 3-2 victory against the DC United at a rainy Chase Stadium. Now, Simon, before we're not going to get into the X's and O's in general. We're just going to take overarching themes of where this team stands as we head into final lap of the regular season. Before we get into it, I have to share that this past weekend, I took the game in from a different seat within the venue. Normally, I'm up in the press box. I've been there, I think, for 99% of all the games that I've covered. And I've covered every single one in Inter Miami's short history. Haven't missed the home game yet. Thought the baby would put that at risk. Alas, she didn't come until after the game, the semifinal League Cup game. So I have not missed one yet. All the same, this time, thanks to Kettle One Vodka, I had a different vantage point. I was in a suite down below on the field. How I got invited to this, Simon, still perplexes me. I have no idea how I was on this list because it wasn't, I thought it was going to be like, for a bunch of us main day-to-day Inter Miami reporters. That's what I assumed, but it wasn't. It was me, 2 other fellas, and 15 women in the suite. We were very outnumbered. Numerical disadvantage for the fellas there. Superioridad numérica para las mujeres in that suite. I'm going to show you some sights and sounds. Thanks to Kettle One. This was when it started raining in the first half and everyone went inside because it was pouring.
It used to be where it was just raining one afternoon, and then that was it.
That might have been at halftime. That may have been at halftime, but this was during.
It's like I used to live in Big It's like this nexus for rain.
That was during a goal. I did get great vantage point of Lionel Messi's golazo, the sensational strike that went to the top corner, upper 90 on the left. Let's take a look from up close and personal. Good shot there. I also got Luis Suarez. He was like a bartender. He was serving the final game of his 3-match suspension for his Leagues Cup antics. He was there slinging mate as if he was a bartender, while Jorge Mas very attentively looked at the action. Let's take a look there. So there you go. That was a bit of how I took in the game on Saturday, which was different. And again, I don't know how I got there. Kettle One did not pay me. This is not a sponsored episode by Kettle One.
You've mentioned them 4 times now, Franco. I'm getting suspicious here.
But no, I have to give them props because I was invited. It was a different experience. And it was, it was a tough day at the office, man. You're outnumbered 15-3. It's a tough day at the office. But it's a hard job. Someone's got to do it, and I was the man selected. I was
free food, free booze, and Lionel Messi scoring a goal. Yeah, okay.
I also got a video of Messi maybe taking out a little booger there, maybe pregame warm-ups. Let's take a look. Maybe he was just sniffing a salt or something, but I don't know. It looked like he was sacando su moquito. Pretty good, right? There you go. Some touches up close and personal for the El 10, and maybe a little moquito being removed there. Hey, man, sometimes, you got them in there. You got to just get it out, man. You can't just let it, lingering there. Anyway, Simon, 2 wins for Inter Miami in their most recent MLS matches. That helps them move up the table, move up the Eastern Conference standings. They are now in 5th place as of today, Monday, September 22nd. They have a 15-win, 7-tie, and 6-loss record. Yes, I am saying it differently than what you see in the graphic. I'm saying it the international football way, whereas MLSsoccer.com likes to do it, wins, losses, tie. Very American way to do it. But all the same, 60 goals scored, 46 goals against. Simon, obviously, we know this team can score goals, but we also know this team can give up goals. going into the final stretch, how are you seeing Inter Miami from a collective standpoint in terms of the style of play?
Collective standpoint in terms of the style of play. I mean, it's very Inter Miami, I think, at the moment, isn't it? You know, they're a team that are dependent on Messi and on their creative players who provide Messi with the service. We know what the defense is. The defense. I mean, it's not a great defense. It has good days and bad days. It's not a championship winning defense, right? But it's a championship winning team because they have that quality at the end of the field. I find the midfield play very slow and laborious at times. But when they get the ball moving a little bit faster, and look, it's a weird team, and MLS is like a weird kind of soccer in some ways, isn't it? There's not that compactness and intensity about teams. Games seem really spread out, especially when Inter Miami are playing, because the midfield, they're not really, you know, apart from maybe Yannick Bright, they're not really going up and down and hard, you know. They're floating through the game a little bit, and it's all about getting the ball out into wide positions for people who can provide Messi with some space and then provide him with a pass. So, you know, it is what it is. It is. I mean, it's Inter Miami. It's not much different from what I've seen over the last couple of games from most of the time I've watched Inter Miami. I'm not seeing anything radically different. I think Mascherano has tightened things up a little bit from the start of his reign. You know, there were a lot of concerns that this could end up being a messy, no pun intended, but, you know, a very, you know, disorganized, you know, that spell before the Club World Cup, that run of games, you know, the exit at the hands of Vancouver, that sort of time, that seems well behind us now. But, you know, 3 games in hand, if they win those 3 games, that's 9 points. They're in top position in the Supporters' Shield standing. You know, that's got to be what they're talking about in the locker room. They've got to be looking at trying to defend that Supporters' Shield title. Even though, you know, they know better than anyone that Supporters' Shield is just a Supporters' Shield and it's not what matters after last year. But I think knowing the sort of competitive spirit of Messi and those guys, they'll be thinking 3 games, that's 9 points, that gets us into the top spot, and they can go on. But, you know, some interesting games to come, so we'll see.
So for me, I mean, it's been clear, but it's become abundantly clear that this team has become a team that has to outscore you to win, right? They're not going to grind out games 1-0. They're not going to, you know, have a moment of Messi magic on one end and then close up shop and be able to keep a clean sheet at the back and that's it, game over. No, this is a team that knows it's going to give up some goals, but knows it can score goals. Now it's a matter of, can the attacking end do more than the damage that you will get at the back? Because the damage at the back is inevitable. You know you're going to give up chances. You're going to very likely give up goals. Can the attack outperform that? Can it overshadow that? That's pretty much what this team
I agree.
Coming down to here in the final stretch, and what it probably will be, because there's no more reinforcements. Nobody else is coming to save this team, be it off of the injury report or off of a free agent signing. No one's coming to help Inter Miami any further. This is the roster that will finish out the year, for better or for worse. So this will be a team that will have to outscore you. And obviously you would say that for any team, but this team will have to be attack minded, in the sense that the attackers have to outperform the mistakes you're going to have at the back. If they don't, then you're in for a rough night.
They have to score it's almost like they have to score 3 goals a game to win. That's the problem.
You need them to score, right? You need them to take their chances. We've seen games where Tadeo Allende has missed a bunch of chances. He got back on the score sheet, ended his scoreless run. You can see how much it meant to him when he scored against D.C. United this past weekend.
Took it very nicely, didn't he? He looked. It was a confident kind of finish, which he probably wasn't inside his head, a confident finish, but you know,
off a great ball from Messi, who finishes this game with an assist and 2 goals.
Yeah.
Which again, for me, the formula is that, because this team, I mean, you touched about the midfield. You said laborious. I think it's the first time laborious has ever been said on Miami Total Football Radio. the
What's
show.
laborious in Spanish then? Probably.
No, it's a good word, but now you're putting me on the spot, man.
Right.
I can't say laboro. No, I don't know. I actually don't know. I actually don't know what the word would be in Spanish. But yeah. So if you don't have Messi up front doing his magic, it's going to be hard for Inter Miami to win. You know, in the final against Seattle in the Leagues Cup, you know, he had a sitter. He didn't take it. And Inter Miami could have maybe changed the tide of the game, or at least changed the dynamics, the complexion. And he did not. All right. So then Inter Miami loses 3-0. They play Charlotte. He has a penalty kick. It's saved. It's a chance to put Inter Miami ahead, and he doesn't. Charlotte came back the other way and ends up scoring, right? So if Messi laborioso, but I don't know if it's like that's the direct translation. I don't know if it's the football translation,
right?
But anyway, for me, the point is that if Messi does not have his magical moments up front, this team is going to find it hard to win. When he doesn't have it, you've seen it recently that they lose, right? And when he does have it, they tend to win. So I think it's pretty clear cut how it's going to be through the rest of the year. A lot of it will fall on Lionel Messi, for better or for worse. You know, whether that's fair or not fair. I mean, that's just how this team is performing this year. I mean, let's listen to Mascherano because he was asked about the defense after Saturday's 3-2 victory over lowly DC United. This is what he had to say.
Creo que, y lo dije después de Charlotte, la preocupación muchas veces es que cuando nos ponemos por debajo en el resultado es como que nos volvemos locos y perdemos el control y muchas veces terminamos jugando, digamos, el equipo pierde la forma. Y tenemos que entender que estamos en una liga que lo que menos tenemos que hacer es perder la forma. ¿Por qué? Porque esta liga te da posibilidades todo el tiempo de volver a engancharte en los partidos. Y creo que es lo que tenemos que trabajar en estos últimos 6 partidos de temporada regular, donde nos tiene que preparar para lo que va a venir. Sabemos que los detalles van a ser la clave de que el equipo pueda seguir progresando en la competición y claramente es la responsabilidad mía y de mi cuerpo técnico como entrenadores tratar de convencer a los jugadores para eso. Mira, desde el primer día dije que claramente nosotros tenemos jugadores de jerarquía que ganan partidos, pero los que, digamos, el sistema defensivo y lo defensivo nos va a hacer tener chances de ganar campeonato. Bueno, estuvimos cerca en algunos, claramente no nos alcanzó. Este es el objetivo, que en estos 6 partidos que quedan, preparar al equipo para fortalecer esa fase.
So to translate for those that don't speak or understand Spanish as well as Simon does, he says this is something we have to work on during the final 6 games of the season. It's a facet of play that we need to improve on. I need to continue working with my technical staff to convince the players. You know, we've gotten close. We've competed for titles this year, but it hasn't been enough. But that's the job the rest of these 6 games is to continue to work on that. Simon, you touched on it. You know, the defense isn't championship caliber, but Messi is championship caliber. But can you, as a team in this league, bank on that being a recipe for success? Because up until now, it has not been, right? He's been here for 2.5 years almost. Yes, they won the Leagues Cup. They won the Supporter Shield last year, but they have still yet to win the big one, which is MLS Cup. Now, it's only been 2 seasons. This will be the 3rd. Is it enough? Is this formula, is this recipe that Inter Miami has a sustainable one if you want to win it all?
It can be, but it's very risky, I think, because there are better teams than DC United, clearly, and there are teams that will punish you. There were a couple of breakaways that DC United had where you could tell they're a team that don't have confidence and aren't, and you know, 28th ranked in MLS, where they didn't make the most of, having 2-on-1 or 3-on-2 situations and so on. Better teams will punish them in those situations and have done, as we've seen.
Vancouver.
And there's going to be those games down the line. I think, they have to find a formula at the back which works, and they've got to decide what they're going to do about Jordi Alba, whether he's playing as a left winger or they're going to play Noah at left back. I think it works fine with Noah at left back. I think he's the last person I would criticize out of the defense for his performances.
New contract, Noah Allen.
Yeah, and quite right too. No, I've been really impressed by Noah Allen. I think, it's the center of defense. That's the problem. The center of defense. And, at times, on Saturday, you're watching the goalkeeper in the first 10 minutes and thinking, what's going on here? I mean, he recovered from it, but it was a really shaky start from Ustari. 2 crosses he dropped, and then that thing that went through his legs and nearly went in.
Yeah.
Went through his arms.
Had a super close look at it, and it slips through his hands again. It was rainy, it was wet. Still no excuse. He was clearly upset about that because he knows how costly that could be. Immediately kicked the water bottles or whatever was right there next to the goal.
But for me, the spacing is look, the central defenders are the quality of player that they are, right? They're at that level, and they're at that age where they're not going to get any better, right? So that's who you got to play with, those defenders. We know who they are. We know their strengths and their weaknesses. Can you protect them a little bit better by the way you play and you set up your midfield? I think you could. But the problem is there aren't really and we'll get on to Busquets later, but that midfield doesn't press and work in the way a lot of midfields do. And so if you do try and protect the defense a lot, you're not further up enough the field to do the other side of it, because the gaps are way too big, aren't they? You know what I mean? Between the 3 phases in the team, the lines are too big. So you can't play a high line because they're not good enough at the back to play that way. So they're playing deeper, and then the midfield either has to not be a line in front of the back that protects them, which is what happens most of the time. Or if it does drop back and protect them, then you've got a massive gap to the strikers. So it's very tricky when you've got an unbalanced team like this. And I'm sure, I bet if we sat down and talked to the top players on that team, they would say that they've never played in a team like this, because you never get. And this is the problem with MLS in general, is that teams play in this kind of strange way that's different from how they play in Europe and South America, because all their best players are at the front end of the field, and they don't have the quality elsewhere. And for Inter Miami, it's an extreme. I mean, if you were being unkind, you could say it's almost like they've got a La Liga attack and a USL defense. Slight exaggeration,
Sure. So I wanted to touch on something you mentioned, because you touched on the center backs being, the Achilles heel, the weakness. I would throw in right back as well. It's been a constant revolving door there between Ian Frey and Chelo Weigand, and neither one of them has cemented that spot.
That's right. Yeah.
There's been good moments for each of them. You can think about Ian Frey having some lights out defensive performances, or you can think about Chelo Weigand occasionally getting forward and whipping in a good cross that leads to goals. You think about the Telasco Segovia goal against Porto, where Chelo combines well down the right side, hits the cross in. He also did the same in a game against Columbus Crew much earlier in the season. So they've had moments, but neither one of them has been lights out. Neither one of them to this point has made that position theirs. And then you throw in the center backs, which has also been, as I described recently for the Miami Herald when I substituted for Michelle Kaufman, our beloved colleague. It's been a carousel approach. Constant changes there. There's never been a pairing that you knew is going to start, or is going to start the next game. There's always the question of, Well, is it going to be Peluca Falcon and Noah Allen? Is it going to be Gonzalo Lujan and Peluca Falcon? Is it going to be Gonzalo Lujan and Toto Aviles? Is it going to be Noah Allen and Toto Aviles? It's just constantly changed, and there's never been a real defined center back.
Which is a problem for a team that wants to win a championship. All championship winning teams, they're usually two of the first names on the team sheet is your two center backs.
Yeah. Absolutely. And normally, you know, that you want to have the movements down pat, you want to have chemistry at the utmost highest. And with the constant rotation, for whatever reason, be it injuries, tactical decisions, level of play, rendimiento, whatever the case is, it just hasn't been something steady and stable. Now, Yannick Bright, like you mentioned, has been brought in to help kind of give the defense a little more steel, a little bit more of a blanket in front. But is that enough? Probably not. Probably not. And what I would say there, Simon, is you can't change the players. Like I said before, you can't change the players at this point. You have what you have. This is your roster. But could you change things tactically if you're Javier Mascherano to try to fine-tune things, to try to tweak things? I think that you can. Now, the problem is that Mascherano is a young head coach who we've seen this year is married to the 4-4-2. And he had a very interesting post-game remark after the 3-1 win over the Seattle Sounders last Tuesday. So 6 days ago. Yes, 6 days ago. Where he said, somebody asked him about playing with a 5-man backline. He says, I don't like defending in a back five. So I asked him last week at practice, a few days later, before in the pregame interview or the match day -1 interview with him on last Friday, I asked him, like, you know, you said you don't like defending with a 5. You like the 4 and the 4-4-2. Why is that? And I asked him just from a sheer soccer standpoint, curiosity. Yeah. I told him, I was like, de curiosidad te pregunto futbolísticamente. It's just genuine curiosity. You know, I wasn't trying to criticize him or praise him for the 4-4-2. I'm just genuinely curious from a soccer standpoint why. And this is his response to why he elects to go with the 4-4-2.
Bueno, porque claramente me siento mucho más cómodo como entrenador defendiendo con línea de 4. Quizás no tengo tanto conocimiento sobre la línea de 5, la he jugado muy poco en mi carrera, prácticamente nada. Y bueno, y al final el fútbol, como entrenador uno hace lo que siente, porque al final es tratar de transmitir las ideas que tenemos y lo que sentimos, y es muy difícil cuando vos querés transmitirle a un jugador algo que no sentís. El jugador tarde o temprano se da cuenta. Pero básicamente por eso, no por nada en especial. Siempre trato de que mis equipos defiendan en línea de 4. Después para atacar sí, de acuerdo al rival y de acuerdo a las características de los jugadores que tengamos, podemos ir variando en hacer salida de 3 o salida de 4 y la altura de los laterales, si son más altos o más bajos. Pero para defender prefiero más en línea de 4 y 4-4-2, te diría. Dale, nada.
So what do you make of the response? And I'll quickly translate while you gather your thoughts there. He says, he starts out with very interestingly, perhaps I do it because I didn't really have much familiarity or much experience playing in a back 5 during my playing career.
Practically so nothing.
Maybe I don't know enough about it. Goes on to saying he just feels more comfortable in the 4-4-2. And we could go deeper and deeper into the philosophical explanation. But Simon, what are your thoughts on that? Because as I get the explanation and I asked him the question, I got a genuine curiosity, but as a head coach, shouldn't you always be evolving because the game's always evolving?
Well, it's an interesting one because, you know, there's a lot of teams, I follow obviously English football as well. And there's a lot of debate about that there as well. You know, Amarin at Manchester United is obsessed with playing it 5 at the back or 3 at the back. And my own team, Burnley, has played 4-4-2 like, you know, last year and had the best defensive record in the entire English pyramid, and then has switched in the Premier League to playing with a 5. And it's interesting to see the knock-on effect for the rest of the team of playing with a 5. And I think this is important. The actual defending side of it, you kind of get a spare man. It's almost like, with the 3 central defenders, one of them is usually free because most teams just play with 1 or 2 central strikers, right? So you're almost back to what used to be in Italian football and also, I think, in South American football, the libero, no? Like a little bit like that, yeah? So you have to have a player who fits that type
The
as
sweeper,
well.
as it would be in English. Sweeper
Right. would, yeah. And that player doesn't have to be a big centre. I mean, one of the most famous examples was Franco Baresi in the great Milan team of the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, who was a little guy, but he was great at reading the game and bringing it out and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen teams, and what I'm seeing every week from Burnley is they've dropped a midfielder into that 3, right? So that he is the free man, and when he doesn't need to be there, he can go into midfield. So you need to have players with that characteristic. Now, do Miami have that player? Because if you were playing 3 central defenders, you're probably talking about those 3 who've been rotating around most of the season, all playing together. Is that really going to make them a better defense, having Aviles, Luan, and Falcon together? I think that's possibly just multiplying the possibilities of some accident happening, to be honest. So, like,
not high on the defense, are we, Simon? But
no,
it's valid. It's valid. It's valid.
So I can understand why he says that. And when he talked about the characteristic of the players, didn't he? Right? And I think he's saying, like, well, who is that person? Now they've tried it on occasions in games with Busquets. No, they've tried it.
Yeah.
Now, Busquets has 0 pace, so like if he gets exposed, that's a risk. But he could play that sweepery kind of role. He could.
So we saw him do it last year with Tata Martino. And one of the first questions I think that Jose asked Javier Mascherano this year when, preseason was getting underway was, last year we saw under Tata Martino, Busquets playing as a center back. Do you see him playing there? Do you envision using him there, or do you see him as more of a midfielder? And Mascherano flatly said, I see him as a midfielder, barring some random, exception that could happen over the course of a game or something along the lines. Something that Mascherano also said in that last soundbite that I didn't share was he talks about believing in his idea, that sooner or later, if you don't believe in your idea, that your players will realize that and they'll figure that out. So clearly he doesn't believe in changing out of this 4-4-2 system. Clearly it's what he knows. It is his strength. If there's any formation you could say is a strength, it's this one, because while maybe we don't know the center back tandem, it's a fair guess and a safe bet every week to predict a 4-4-2. That's what we've seen 95 to 97% of the time this season at the start of games. So I don't think he'll change it. Could he change it to try to tweak things again to give your defense a little more coverage? I think he could try it, but at this point in the year, you're not really going to experiment.
I don't think so. The other thing is that knock-on effect I'm talking about. Sorry, but the way he's set up the team with the wide players being so important. Jordi on the left now, and then on the right, it's you're talking about people like Segovia playing down the right a little bit more. He likes. Sorry, you got Jordi out on the left, and who's been playing mostly on the right wing then?
Normally it's Allende this season, but as of late,
with Suarez out, he's gone central. Yeah,
and you have DePaul now playing as the right midfielder, who's not really a right midfielder, right? He's tucking in centrally, and therefore you're losing width and attacking profundity, right? You're lacking depth in the attack because DePaul's not a winger. Now you've got 3 central midfielders in Busquets, Bright, and DePaul in that midfield, which to your point, if you go to the back 5, you have to sacrifice somebody. Who do you sacrifice? It's a very tricky. I just don't see them switching out of the 4-4-2.
I don't think it makes sense either, because they don't have the players to fit that system at all. Not in the back line even. So, if you're just playing 3 average central defenders to make up for the fact that they're so average, I don't think it's the solution, really.
3 averages, and that's what he's looking at. A high grade.
And I think if you do that, you reduce the chances of you scoring the 3 goals that you need to win after you concede 2.
Right. Fair point. I think maybe the best argument you could potentially make if you were to say go back to a back five, which again I don't think they can do at this point of the year, and I don't think they will do, would be maybe Noah Allen as the left center back, Peluca Falcon maybe as your libero sweeper, and then one of Gonzalo Lujan or Toto Aviles, which I think has to be Gonzalo Lujan at this point. Toto Aviles is a disaster in terms of his decision making far too often, and I think you can't risk that, jeopardize that in the big games. But anyway, Simon, all right. We talked about the defense. In this game against DC United, we saw a lot of Messi magic, a lot of it. The assist to Allende, and then 2 well-taken goals. He also gave up a penalty kick. Inter Miami was given a penalty kick, and he gave it up so that Matteo Silvetti could try to open his scoring account for Inter Miami. The game was 3-1 at that point. Silvetti clanks it off the crossbar, and DC United ends up scoring another one late on to make it 3-2, which made for some nervy moments, a nervy finish. Could have come back to haunt Inter Miami. Alas, it does not. They hold on. They get the 3 points. But it was Messi magic again, the old tried and true formula for Inter Miami for how to win games. And we'll now use that to transition to the bigger news, which is obviously in the title here of the show. According to Michelle Kaufman of the Miami Herald, Lionel Messi has signed the contract extension at long last. An announcement is expected in the next week or so. There's no real details of the contract from the Miami Herald, although from other reports that have come out, other murmurs, it sounds like it will be through 2027 with an option for 2028. And I imagine that will be a player option, not a team option, as normally is the case in Major League Soccer. We don't know the financials. We don't know the numbers. I imagine there's plenty that has been written into the contract. I'm sure he's negotiated a hell of a deal for himself. I don't think there was any question, at least from my seat here covering the team day to day, that he would resign. I always thought he was going to be back here and finish his career here. Michelle Kaufman did report that this would be the final contract of his career. Simon, what do you make of Messi extending his stay in lovely South Florida, extending his stay with La Rosa Negra of Inter Miami and MLS?
I think it's great news, obviously, for Inter Miami. It's great news for the league as well. Excuse me, the commercial deals that have been done, the revenue that's being generated, and the interest that's being generated by Messi continues. So that's good news. Another year of that. I mean, obviously, with the new stadium coming online next year as well, that was crucial. I mean, that would have been a real body blow, I think, to the club's ownership if they were moving into a new stadium with all the upheaval to the fan base that implies, and not having Messi around. So that's great. Multi-year contract, I'm skeptical about. I wouldn't be. I mean, Messi's going to quit when he wants to quit, right? So, I think he's always going to stay for the World Cup, even though he makes these ambiguous comments about whether he'll be playing in the World Cup or not. His whole thing, he's playing the World Cup, right? And for me, the interesting question, Messi's future gets decided in that World Cup, right? After that World Cup, Messi will there will be emotions around that World Cup that we don't yet know what they're going to be. Either it's going to be remarkable second straight victory for Argentina. He's truly the GOAT. No one could dispute it. Incredible. In which case, is that not the moment that you say, I'm done? Or does it fill him with enthusiasm to go and win the League's Cup a few months after that World Cup? Or, is to carry on playing is what I mean, without being facetious. Of course. Or, as some people fear, is this going to be one tournament too far for this Argentine generation? Because, it's quite an old team. It's not only Messi who's hitting 38. They're still playing with people, around him, Di Maria and Otamendi and players like that who are.
Di Maria retired. Di Maria did retire internationally.
Has he retired internationally?
Yes, he has retired internationally. Okay. Otamendi's still in the picture, though.
Yeah, he retired after the tournament, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes. Otamendi's still there, though. That is.
But you look at it and think like, they haven't had a big changing of the guard. They're going with these guys for one more tournament and so on. If that ends up a disappointment, and we know how critical the Argentine press and public can be when things go wrong for the national team. I mean, they're euphoric, like the biggest cheerleaders you could imagine when their national team's doing well. But when it's doing badly, they can be brutally critical. And, if it goes like that, does Messi not say, okay, end of the road? I don't know. What I'm saying is, I don't.
So you're
think
skeptical. You're skeptical that this is.
He's going to play at 40. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
So you don't. So you. What do you think? Just 2026, and maybe that could be it.
I think yeah, I do. I think it sees it this season through to the World Cup, and he'll finish that season, and then he'll decide. Messi will decide when he wants to quit, regardless of his contract.
So I agree with that, and I agree that. From a storybook, novel type, movie type scenario, it would make sense to end at the World Cup, especially if you are able to successfully defend the title with Argentina. That makes a lot of sense. But I don't know. I don't know if he's ready to call it with Argentina yet. He could have done it after the last World Cup. He had won a Copa America and he won the World Cup in 2022. But he decided to continue playing. He wins another Copa America, goes through another qualifying cycle. Maybe he wanted a victory lap. Maybe he just wanted to enjoy the positivity around the national team since they had taken that monkey off their back. But I don't know, man. I just think he likes playing so much that I just don't rule him. I don't think he just ends next year, especially with the money that I'm sure he's going to be making. And look, you can say Messi has made a shitload of money in his playing career and with his commercial deals and everything. But someone told me this, someone wiser than myself, that you can never have enough money. And maybe that's also an incentive and a motivation to keep going. Mascherano was asked about Messi's new deal after the reports came out last week. True to his style, Mascherano did not confirm nor deny it, but he did start touching on things that I think, if you read into it, my supposition is that this is how they're viewing it. Having Messi in the United States for a few more years is to not only for him and beneficial to him, but also beneficial for soccer, football in this country, that this will help potentially continue to grow the game and the level of interest in this game. Now, whether you and I agree with that or not, and how much of an impact he's really going to make, I mean, we could have that discussion. Let's listen to Mascherano really quickly, and we can continue from there.
Bueno, no, yo no voy a hablar de supuestos, creo que aparte no soy yo el que tiene que dar esa noticia, ya ojalá que se dé pronto, como digo siempre, que sea, porque creo que es una grandísima noticia no solamente para el club, sino para la MLS en general, ¿no? Pero creo que en el caso de que se dé, va a ser esto mismo, ¿no? Una gran noticia para el fútbol de Estados Unidos en general, ¿no? Poder contar con él un tiempo más, ¿no? Pero bueno, te vuelvo a repetir, creo que hay que esperar a que las cosas se desarrollen por sí solo y bueno, y que lo puedan anunciar los que lo tienen que anunciar.
Very quick translation. He says it's not up to him to touch on it or to announce it. He leaves it to the people that have to announce it. He said, hopefully it gets done, yada, yada, yada. But that, again, he thinks it will help the sport in this country, in the United States, to be able to count on the best player of all time, in his opinion, for a little while longer. To me, that sounds like bigger picture. Like they think that he's going to continue, obviously, to bring eyeballs and money and interest into the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
does
saying
that have the impact, Simon? Does that have the impact? I mean, you and I have talked NFL in recent weeks, right? And I went to a game, and you went to a preseason game. I mean, do we really expect soccer to make a dent into the American soccer landscape because Messi's here a few more years? Do we actually, including the World Cup? The World Cup's part of this bigger picture moment. Do you see that being realistic? Is it feasible in your opinion?
I don't think it does any harm. I mean, I think the impact he's made now, yeah, the extra year at least, that stadium factor is really crucial to get people used to going to that stadium. So I'm not saying he'll quit straight after the World Cup, but I think that World Cup will have a major impact on his mood and how he feels about it. And it could go either way, but just because what I'm saying is contracts in soccer don't mean a great deal.
Sure.
Right. And if he signs 2 years with an option for another, and I wonder if the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo is still scoring goals in his 40s is a factor in his mind as well. It is if you look after yourself, you can do it, especially if you drop down a little bit of a level by going to Saudi or MLS. So yeah, will it make a massive difference to soccer in America? The World Cup, this is a huge debate, and it's one I get into on my own podcast, The Soccer Business, quite a bit, and we talk about in the newsletter.
Plug it.
Hey, Kettle One can get plugs on this show. Like, come on.
Plug it. I'm all for it, baby. I'm all for it.
Soccer Business newsletter that I do. We look at this, but the people who presume that the World Cup's going to give this massive boost to the sport, and I think it does give a massive boost to the sport. Does it give a massive boost to MLS and the domestic American soccer, or does it create more fans of the global game? That, for me, is the real question, because I know loads of kids.
Do you see it?
I think they've got to bring. I think the league has got to bring in some younger Messis after the tournament to capture that momentum.
There are no younger Messis.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Younger stars, let's say. Yeah. Of course, there's no younger Messis, but you know what I mean.
So Simon, hold on. I want to make sure I have a clear answer to this question. And obviously, we're going into our crystal balls here. Do you see a short-term future where post-World Cup, and let's say we're in 2027, Messi is still playing? Do you see an American sports landscape where soccer, is talked about more in the day-to-day,
in the mainstream,
the average sports fan, mainstream sports in the United States? Do you see that happening? Because I do not see that happening. I just don't see that happening.
I don't think it breaks through into becoming something that on Sports Center and the hot take shows and everything that like people are saying like, oh, did you see the MLS game at the weekend? No, I don't see that happening. Not yet.
So where does this project go after this year, right? Let's say they win, let's say they lose, whatever the case is this year. We know that there's going to be changes. We can tie in now Sergio Busquets, who reportedly will call it a career at the end of this year. It's not confirmed, but I mean, being honest here, sitting in front of you or, computer to computer, microphone to microphone, I mean, all signs from being one of the day-to-day reporters, all signs pointed to him hanging them up at the end of this year, calling an end to an illustrious career. He doesn't look up to the level that he was even when he first arrived. Obviously, he's out of contract, and there's been no contract negotiations for something new. When we last talked to him about it, it sounded like he was leaning towards retiring more so than continuing to play. He even said, "Clearly, I'm closer to the end than anything else." He made little comments here that, reading through the lines, you could pretty much tell that it was going to be his final season. That is what has been reported. We won't talk about his Inter Miami tenure until that's all complete. We can save that for later in the year. But where does the project go, right? If Busquets leaves, you have Messi, you have Jordi Alba both signed. You imagine, even though officially it's not a done deal, but you imagine Rodrigo de Paul returns next season. So your 3DPs are all locked up. Does it remind me? I mean, does MLS go to 40Ps? Could, but let's just stick with the idea that it goes with 3. I mean, where does this project go, Simon?
Well, I do think there's going to be changes to the roster rules and the cap. Yeah, I think there is going to be more room to build a supporting cast around top players. Yeah, and there was a transfer that nearly happened this summer. I don't want to mention names, but I was given some insight into a transfer not involving Inter Miami, but a top world star who was very close to coming and joining one of the teams in MLS. And the reason he didn't pull the trigger on the deal was he said, "Who's going to give me the ball in this team? Like, who are these guys I'm playing with? Like, you've sold me on the league, you've sold me on the salary, you've sold me on the commercial possibilities and the growing the game stuff. But who are these guys I'm going to be playing with? I don't know who they are." Yeah. And this is going to be a problem if MLS wants to get to the next level. That you have to be able to build a better supporting cast. You're always going to have these star players and some sort of DP system in MLS, I think. But can you have not going from USL defense to La Liga attack? Can you spend like $1 million a year salary on a central defender or a really good fullback? Can you start to have that spread out through the team? That's what really needs to be done to get the league to go to the next level, in my opinion. Because if all it is another group of like DPs in their 30s, Thomas Muller coming's great, yeah. If we see Harry Kane come in 2 years' time to MLS, I wouldn't rule that out. But in 2 years' time, a 33, 34-year-old Harry Kane comes for a couple of seasons and breaks some goal-scoring records. Great. Does that change anything at this stage, though? We've been through that. We've seen these players. We've had all these kind of players. What we need is that level to be up, as the Club World Cup showed, and as we see every week in MLS. The quality players that there are in this league aren't surrounded by enough quality to really make the games and the spectacle and the entertainment have that really authentic sort of intense feeling. So that's what they've got to do. Now, how does Inter Miami fit into this? For me, the really good news about Messi re-signing, apart from the obvious, is it gives the club a chance to do what I've said on this show before they should have done from the outset, which is build a squad for the future around the amazing opportunity you can offer young talent to come and play with one of the greatest players in the world. And, we see that a little bit with some of these signings. Yeah, some of them, I think about that kind of player, like a Diego Gomez type player who came in, Can you go and get more players like that? Can your first season in that stadium be, instead of Sergio Busquets, you can have more Silvetti type players and those kind of players coming in, young players coming from South America or from within the US system or from anywhere else for that matter. Get them in, build a young team around Messi that's going to play with more intensity, that's going to bring out the best of Messi and Jordi Alba, because we presume he's going to be there as well, right? And then when they go, there's some players there you can continue with, rather than what it's going to be like if Messi were to leave now, if he wasn't signed this contract, and him and Busquets go, what's left? Like, what would be left? Not a lot. So much. Build something. Use this an extra year or two with Messi to really build something. That's what I hope happens.
So I think that they're going to have to, I don't know about revamp. They're going to have to retool the project, right? Busquets, again, all signs point to him retiring. So while clear that his best days are behind him, he still brings ball retention to your midfield. Not having him might free up some money. And I had this conversation with somebody today, actually. Not having him might free up some money to maybe spend elsewhere to maybe address center back. But then you're going to maybe have ball retention issues because Rodrigo de Paul isn't necessarily the same type of midfielder as Sergio Busquets. So you lose Busquets, even though maybe you gain more defensive solidity, defensive muscle, defensive steel somewhere else by relocating resources. Maybe you lose possession. And when losing possession, then you have opposing teams that attack you more, and then your defense is under fire. And then we get back into this whole conundrum of, is the defense good enough, or what's wrong with the team? So I think they're going to have to very strategically make some big signings, and not necessarily big names, but they're going to have to make some big signings to fill the holes around Messi. Let's not forget, we talk about the contract. We talk about Messi's level. Jordi Alba's level. Jordi Alba, you touched on, he signed through 2027, signed an extension earlier this year. They're going to get older. And while they are incredible and the fact that they're still able to play at a high level is astonishing, impressive, remarkable, they're going to get slower. Their forms are going to probably dip. I can't imagine that Messi will finish. Maybe I'm wrong, because Messi's been superhuman for much of his career, but I can't imagine that when he ends his career, if he does it at 40, at 41, if he plays the whole contract through, that he's going to play at the same level he's at now. He's going to get older. He's going to get a little slower. It's going to the game's going to
You can already see it a little bit, can't you?
Correct.
Certain games.
So I can't imagine.
Charlotte game, he was like way off it.
So actually, funny that you mentioned that. Very quick parentheses to that. I'm hearing murmurs around the organization about this team, and it's going to sound like a cop out to you, maybe, or I mean, you tell me what you think. But I'm hearing murmurs about this team finding it uncomfortable or finding it more challenging and not succeeding on turf fields.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm just telling you what I've heard, man.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Mascherano's comments post-game on Saturday, he talks about one of the things he mentions very quickly is getting as many points as possible to finish as high up the table as possible because of the benefit of playing at home. He talked
on
about
grass.
Yes, on grass. Yes. And recently, after I think there was the Charlotte game, he also slightly mentioned turf. But I have heard that. I have heard that this team
that
has this sense that they don't like playing on turf. They can't play with the same intensity because of their age and because of who they are. They can't play the same way on turf. Now,
that's what I mean.
I'm not saying it's a valid
that's
reason.
That's why you need to go. No. That totally makes sense. I mean, it's tough on the knees for starters, but it's also the ball zips around a little bit more, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why they need to go younger, because they do play slow. We've got so used to watching this team that maybe we sometimes forget how slow it is.
Slow.
But the ball moving from the back to the forwards, it's like. And there's so many passes get hit behind guys, and the hit's so slow that they can retrieve it, so they need to get more zip in the game and more intensity and so on. If they want to do well in CONCACAF, especially if they want to, do well against Mexican teams and stuff like that as well, got to be a tighter, more compact and more. Mascherano knows all this. He's played, obviously. But
the project hasn't been that, Simon. The project, even, and we've asked Mascherano at different points because there's been criticism from opposing players about that, about Inter Miami being slower, not able to have the legs to outrun and outwork you. And Mascherano said, "This is the MO. This is the style that Inter Miami has adopted. This is the type of soccer we want to play." But does that have to change going forward?
That's the squad. That's the squad he's been given. That's not the way he wants to play football, I'm sure.
So you do think this gets altered going forward? You do think they become maybe a little less possession-based? Not saying completely less possession-based, but a little less possession-based and a little bit more direct?
Yeah, by direct, I mean, I think, there's no better thing for Messi than if you can move the ball quickly through the midfield and find him in space before the defense has had time to set up.
Absolutely.
If you're always so
100%.
slow that the defense can read everything 5 minutes before it happens, you get those games like you saw in Charlotte and you saw in Seattle where Messi gets closed out of a game because they're able to read it and organize and set up, But if you're moving it fast from the wings and through midfield and so on, I would be looking to bring in those, 19, 20, 21-year-olds who are hungry, who've got physical qualities to bring to the side. And if you're losing Busquets, yes, you're losing that control and that precision in midfield, but you're gaining a ton of legs and you're gaining the opportunity to play real number 8s and real number 6s who can go up and down. And and De Paul, I mean, we've seen him strolling through these games a little bit, and
you haven't been enamored. You have not been enamored.
I'm a huge fan of Rodrigo De Paul. I mean, when he signed, I think I came on this show and said he's one of the best midfielders in the world. Right? I do think he is. I think what he's seen is that the game is so much slower than what he's used to playing for Atletico before he came over here, that he's sort of adjusting to the slowness of it, and
he's also playing out of position on the wing.
I think next year, if you go 4-4-2 with young guys either side on the wings, or Jordi down the left and a younger player with pace down the right, and you have Rodrigo de Paul, and maybe it's still Yannick Bright alongside him, and they're going up and down, and he'll like that. That's when you start to see the Messi's bodyguard element that we haven't really seen that much of yet, and everything. When he has to be in there and graft and work, and I think he'll do that. He'll do that. He's done it, and he does it for Argentina. So I think they've got to do that. And if they, is Suarez going to be around next year though? That's another factor, isn't it?
Suarez?
Yeah.
So funny enough, before I answer that question, that we start to wrap up the show, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned really quickly, and that's Messi. We know Messi in tight quarters can do Messi things, right? But when is Messi at his, absolute best? And this is my opinion, this is my observations, my analysis. But I even saw it from this different vantage point that I had this past Saturday, from the suite level, thanks to Kettle One, where in the first half, Inter Miami quickly transitioned, and Messi had space to run at. And when you give Messi space to run at with his dribbling abilities, with his precise passes that he can hit, with his ability that if you push too far to cover the pass, he can take a shot, or he can thread the needles and make it. That's when he is probably at his strongest.
Yeah, I agree.
Stage in his career. So maybe going forward with this project, losing Busquets and the legs that he does not provide, even though he gives you other things, maybe that allows you to, maybe you lose a little Futbol, maybe, but maybe you get a little more verticality that helps Messi.
I think it works, but I totally agree. I think you've seen that really well. Yeah, I think that's the way they've got to go. But also, it's not just the on the field product for next season; it's for the legacy as well.
Absolutely.
And if he leaves, and we've got a young team in Miami that's like won something with Messi, likable young players, exciting talents who are going to get better, that keeps your crowd coming back. That keeps the buzz going around the club, and that's what you want. What would be a disaster would be, if he retired at the end of this season and, people are saying goodbye to Chase Stadium by waving goodbye to these players who haven't really won anything and who's coming to the end of their careers, along with the Busquets and Suarez and so on, saying their farewell. And then people are going well, what's left? And you're moving to a new stadium. So let's do it. Let's get it going. Let's have a team that it's really got a future to build for Miami for the next 6-7 years, not just for one season.
Francisco Garcia says in Spanish, De Paul es un Ferrari en una carrera de NASCAR.
Bravo.
There you go.
Apunto.
Francisco Garcia also says, just subscribe to the soccer business. So there you go. Your plug.
You're welcome.
Your plug worked.
Thank you, Francisco.
You touched on Suarez. What's his future? There's been no murmurs, nothing new about a contract extension as of late. Last we heard there hadn't been talks through at least the summer. At least that's what we were told. Have you felt that he's been missed in this 3-game stretch that he's been suspended for? Have you felt his presence missed for Inter Miami?
Yeah, I have to say that, and I've generally been a bit critical of Suarez, and my overall impression is that this should be his last season, and I think it's like a question that it's that there isn't a replacement for him.
But doesn't that add to the idea that we just touched on that they have with him on the field? Yes, he gives you something to the attack, his passing ability, his movement, his combative nature, his pressing, his competitiveness. But don't you once again lose something from a physical standpoint?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So,
you think his legs have gone?
You think they need it? You think that they're a better team with him on the field than without him? Overall,
at the moment, yeah, but they shouldn't be. Well, it's two separate questions, right? Should they be starting next season with Suarez as the number 9? In my opinion, no, right? At this stage, to win the MLS Cup this season, do they need Suarez to play number 9? Yes.
Yes, because again, this team needs to outscore the other team. They're not grinding out 1-0 victories.
Yeah.
Dan plays FIFA says, do you think Messi will play in the Inter Miami versus New England Revolution on October 4th at Chase Stadium? It's a good question. I don't know if the international break starts then or not. I have to double check that. So I can't answer that yet, but I will answer that for you. Maybe on the next pod. All right, Simon, we've gone through a healthy pod. We've done it in less time than normal, probably a little bit more than you were looking for, but a little bit. We did it less than what we normally shoot for. So
it was all the commercial breaks for Kettle One. That's what it was.
Listen, this show was not brought to you by Kettle One Vodka because look, and you know how I'm gonna prove it? Go get some Tito's. Go get some.
No, man. I tell you what.
Kettle One doesn't sponsor.
Are you monetized on YouTube?
I am monetized, but wait, what else? I'm trying to think of vodkas.
You're not gonna get through the checks with all these like
Tito's. What are other vodkas? Absolute vodka, effing vodka. Look, see, I'm naming all the vodka. So, but this show was sponsored by Kettle One Vodka. This would not be. This would not fly. So
it is good vodka, Kettle One, though. I think
it's good. Yeah, I've had it before. Dan says the break starts on October 6th. So then, yes, then Messi should be here. If the break starts on October 6th, Messi should play in that game. Look, Inter Miami's trying to win. I'll show you the remaining schedule before we call it a show here. This is the remaining schedule. They play on Wednesday at New York City, which we didn't even really touch on, but we'll leave it for the recap pod. Then they go to Toronto. So they're playing 2 away games this week in the next few days. After that, they return home. They host the Chicago Fire. They host the New England Revolution in that game on October 4th. And then they play during the international break or right after the international break against Atlanta United before closing the season at Nashville. I mean, there's some winnable games there. Very winnable games.
Oh, yeah. So
they could easily make a good push to get as high up the standings as they possibly can. Maybe an outside push for the Supporter Shield, although I doubt it. All right. We will leave it there. We'll see what the future holds for Inter Miami. We'll see if and when we hear the Messi announcement. Maybe we'll hear it before the next pod. Maybe not, but it is expected to come very, very soon. Simon, any final thoughts, my friend, after another
I want to come back.
Episode?
I miss arguing with Andrea and Jose. Right, so let's do it all of us sometime. But
we do need to do that.
My final thoughts are that I think we're in for an exciting few months of soccer now. Yeah, I mean, I really do. It's going to be look. It's never dull, really, with this Inter Miami team. We talked about the flaws of the team. I think most fans who enjoy the games would accept those criticisms about the flaws. And exactly what Nick's saying here. You know, they're an incomplete and a flawed team, but they could end up with the magic that they have contained within them, going and winning MLS Cup this year. And it's going to be a tough ask, but it's going to be a real exciting few months. So I'm looking forward to this October, November, and hopefully December.
We touched on it, you and I, on this podcast after the CONCACAF Champions Cup exit when they lost to the Vancouver Whitecaps. We talked about the state of the team and the project and what they needed to address. They didn't really address much of what we talked about then. And we were not too optimistic at that point about their chance to win MLS Cup. Again, with Messi, you always have a fighting chance. But if you had to put a prediction on it, Simon, because sometimes we don't get you back for a month or two, does Inter Miami do it? Do they win MLS Cup this year?
It's a tough one.
That's a no. If it was a yes, you would have already said it.
It's not a clear and obvious answer, as far I would say. Yeah.
So I'm going to say I'm still predicting no. They have the capability. Messi would have to play at an incredibly high level, and the defense would have to at least play a smidge better than it's playing now to have a chance of doing it.
It just depends on the draw. It depends on who they're playing.
There's too many holes, man. I just think there's too many holes. Like even against DC United, you touched on it. They didn't play well. They didn't perform well. It was Messi just doing Messi things, overshadowing poor performance collectively overall.
Some good teams in MLS as well this year. There are some good teams. If you look at the way San Diego play, I mean, I know, we're only playing in the East until we get to the final, but there's some good teams.
Brad says, have you guys seen Son and Bouanga? They'll rip us apart on the counter. Talking about the LAFC duo, Mike V says, love Busi, but he's looking old out there. Last game, he folded up like a lawn chair all by himself. I think there's too many holes. For this version. So if I had to bet, if I had to guess, I'm saying no, not this year. But all right, we will leave it there for Simon Evans and his very Steven Spielberg-esque camera that has been like moving around as he makes dramatic statements and pans out. See, look at that. It closes up, zooms out. Fantastic stuff. Steven Spielberg-esque. For Simon Evans, I am Franco Panizo. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will try to be back later in the week, although it might be tough given Jose Andres' schedules. But we'll see what we can do. We'll try to be back. But if not, we'll see you guys next week. Give us a subscribe, a like, a comment, a share, all of the above. You have been listening to or watching Miami Total Football Radio, the show. I'm Franco Panizo. Have a great night, everybody.